Hey everybody, Joseph Rothschild here, aka Mono Bluetron, back again with another episode of 10-Minute Testing. Well, it's happening. The scourge of 2015 and 2014, Burning Abyss has returned once more to meta relevance, and things are only going to get better for Dante and friends. I'm here today to make a case for BA as one of the prime decks that can take advantage of Light of Sekka, an incredible card provided your deck doesn't have any spells or traps in it. So strap yourselves in and prepare your PTSD for Light of Sekka BA. So here's the list, and wow, that's a lot of orange. As always, I'll give a little bit of background about the archetype, a little bit of a discussion about what I hope the deck can do, and as always, the card by card. So firstly, for those of you that don't know, Burning Abyss is an archetype that has been relevant for far, far too long. It's one of the most notorious floating archetypes of all time, using Dante, Traveler of the Burning Abyss, to recur monsters to hand, and Seer Malbranch to recur monsters to field. It's remarkably consistent, which affords it tremendous flexibility in build paths. People play it pure with floodgates like Anti-Spell, with Phantom Knights for explosivity and access to Breaksword, and most recently with a whole boatload of hand traps. That's what we're doing today, but we're supplementing the hand trap engine with Light of Sekka, a literal pot of greed with upside, provided you're not playing any other spells. A card that looks like it could have been designed for Hearthstone, Light of Sekka is only playable if you have no spells or traps in your graveyard, and prevents you from activating any other non-Sekka spells for the rest of the duel. Now that's not a big deal for BA, since most of our monsters provide the disruption we would normally need from spells and traps anyway. We're playing a myriad of ways to make Dante, as well as some cuteness like 3 Blackluster Soldier, to help provide utility to a deck that can't play evenly matched. Finally, since I'm resigned to the fact that it will be $20.99 before we even see a glimpse of Cherubini, this deck is made without her, electing to play an extremely wonky suite of Link monsters to most effectively take advantage of Rescue Ferret. So with that, let's get into the card by card. First, we have the BA dudes. 1 Seer, 1 Graf, 1 Rubik, 1 Cowcab, 1 Alec, 2 Barbar because I'm bad, 2 Libic because there's actually a lot in this deck that isn't Burning Abyss, 3 Farfa, and 3 Skarm. After that is 3 Fiendish Rhino Warrior, who is insane in this build specifically, 1 Tour Guide to the Underworld, and 3 Tour Guide to the Underworm, Galaxy Worm. After that is 3 Rescue Ferret, amazing for rebuilding boards and pretty good at turboing out a Burning Abyss monster in an otherwise searchless hand. 1 Snow because I'm a doofus, 2 Crane to get back 3s for Link monsters and Dantes, 3 Blackluster Soldier Envoy of the Beginning to out large men. Next are 3 Ash Blossom and 3 Ghost Ogre, the minimum amount of hand traps I am comfortable playing. Finally, Light of Sekka, which lets you draw 2 cards and banish itself to shuffle a monster from your hand back into your deck and draw an additional one. In the extra deck, we've got 1 Grape Dante, 1 Virgil, 1 Beatrice, Nightmare Shark, Breaksword, Grampulse, 3 Dantes, Saruya, and then a whole bunch of weird Link monsters. We have 1 Decode Talker for general beats, 1 A-lister for a Burning Abyss guy and something like a hand trap or a worm, 1 Doolittle Chimera for 2 Ash Blossoms, 1 Perpetual King Archfiend for 2 Burning Abysses, and 1 Underclock Taker for everything else. So with that, let's jump into the games. So for our first match, we've got a little bit of a blink and you'll miss it against Cosmo. This is a matchup you used to have to sit through all the time, and they were very long, because 3,000 attack on Dark Destroyer is nothing to sniff at. You can see we're going first, which is excellent. It means we'll be able to establish a Beatrice on our first turn. We'll go ahead and normal summon this Galaxy Worm and get another one from deck. This is just an excellent card. We'll go ahead and fire off this Dante for 3, hoping to get lucky. We don't, so we'll just go into a Beatrice and end our turn. Our opponent has kind of bricked. They'll start by normal summoning a Farm Girl, then tagging out for a Dog Fighter. We can do all manner of ridiculous things here, but first we're going to use Skarm's effect to get a Tour Guide to our hand. We draw into a Light of Sekka, then we'll Farfa away that Dog Fighter since we can target it, use the Dante material to put the Skarm back in our hand, and fire off this Light of Sekka, just drawing 2 cards, then shuffling 1 for another one. We get a Fiendish Rhino Warrior, which means it's very easy for us to push for lethal because none of our monsters are going to be destroyed by their own effects. This is 800, 2500, and 3000 far over game. So for Game 2, we're moving from 2015 BA matchups to 2016 ones. Of course, the bannings that happened in 2015 are a lot of the reason that BA left the metagame entirely for a couple of years, but the rise of Blue Eyes White Dragon is another very important factor because Spirit lines up so well against a BA. Thankfully, we now have a lot more utility monsters. Envoy of the Beginning might prevent it from coming out in the first place, but we'll see how it goes. Our opponent's going to start, and they have a whopper of a hand. They'll go ahead and start with this Pot of Desires. I don't know about this order. They send a copy of Egg off of Dragon Shrine and get Melody of Awakening Dragon off, which means they're going to get the Sage of the Eyes of Blue Search, get themselves a copy of Effect Veiler, and end on Spirit Dragon, and 2 copies of Blue Eyes White Dragon. That 3,000 attack just so difficult to get over with our Dantes. We're going to have to make Dante the hard way because we don't want our Worm getting Veilered. We'll go ahead and fire off. We hit 3, one of which is a Light of Sekka. We're going to activate the Alec Engrave so that he negates it, so we can then use said Light of Sekka to shuffle this Worm back. We're going to go into BLS, try to banish it. Of course, he will tag out in response and goes into Moonlight. That's going to bounce the BLS and prevent us from doing anything with it, but of course we can go into Beatrice afterwards afterwards because we have at least one more Burning Abyss in our hand. We'll banish one card and attack over the Moonlight. So there's one problematic card gone. We've set this copy of Rhino because I want the Graph that I'm going to send off the purple Dante to get a Scarm and immediately destroy it. We're going to use the effect of Dante and the effect of Farfa to banish that alternative dragon, and then go into a purple Dante, sending a Graph, getting a Scarm, just like I said, so we can get a search in the end phase. But unfortunately, our opponent decides they're just going to normal summon the Effect Veiler and go into a Spirit Dragon, which means in the end phase they're going to be able to negate our Scarm's effect. It's not looking great, but it's also not looking terrible. We can probably make things happen, especially with this Crane draw. We're going to go ahead and force the activation of Spirit Dragon with our Blackluster Soldier. He goes ahead and goes into Azurized Spirit Dragon. We're going to go ahead and normal summon the Farfa and go into Decode Talker, which gets us a boatload of effects. We're going to send a copy of Seer off of said Fiendish Rhino Warrior, and what do you know, now we can use Rescue Ferret for our 3,300 attack Decode Talker. So things are looking very, very good for us now. We just have to out the alternative that we know they have in the hand. Our guy's back to 2,800, but it's not a giant deal. They're going to go ahead and special summon the alternative, target the Decode Talker. We will negate the effect, and tired of all of the floating and all of the effects, they'll concede. So since this deck is already kind of proven by putting up results pre-Sekka even, there's no real reason for me to do a best of 3 versus meta. Instead, I'd prefer to continue running the meta gauntlet. Our third opponent is playing ABC, and they have a pretty interesting hand, especially for going second or going first, and we have a Light of Sekka in our hand, which is usually quite good, but what do we find off said Sekka with the most tantalizing card in the universe, Galaxy Worm, which is unfortunately a prime target for Effect Veiler. Light of Sekka is going to shuffle one card back, but unfortunately, because we can't special summon any monsters, all we can do is just sit here. Our opponent's going to activate Union Hanger, and then when they go to equip, we'll go ahead and Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit it. It's pretty choice. They have the materials in their hand for an ABC, but unfortunately can't do anything about it, at least for the time being. They're going to walk over our Galaxy Worm, which frees up our board. We're going to go ahead and make a Dante with a Seer and a Scarm, mill 3, and we hit an Alec and a Fiendish Rhino Warrior. I'm going to send a Graph off the Warrior to get a Barbar from deck, and I don't want to go into Beatrice, which is my end goal yet, just because I want to get in for 1,700 more with said Barbar. We're going to do that in main phase 2, go into a Beatrice, not use Barbar's effect. I'm not in the habit of banishing yet, and pass it back. Our opponent draws another piece. They'll start by setting a C, which is pretty good because they can just special summon the third piece from their hand. We're going to go ahead and get Scarm's effect, get Dante's effect as well, and then draw a Galaxy Worm. We'll go ahead and make Blackluster Soldier, then normal summon the Tour Guide from the Underworld, getting ourselves a Barbar, then go to battle phase. We destroy the C that activates the C's effect, but also activates BLS's effect. This one is special summoned face up, so we can use Farfa off of a Beatrice in order to banish it until the end of the turn, and this is going to be Omega Lethal, 3,000 from the BLS itself, 1,000 from the Tour Guide, and 1,700 for Xaxes. Our fourth match is up against Burning Abyss, and our opponent is playing Cherubini, so we're going to get to see just how much we're missing out on by not playing it. Our opponent's going to start by activating the effect of Libic to get it from hand, then normal summoning a copy of Fiendish Rhino Warrior so they can go into Cherubini himself. I'm going to Ash Blossom the Fiendish Rhino Warrior, but oh, here's Designator, so I guess they'll get the effect after all. They're going to use Graph to get a Scarm from deck, then use the effect of Cherubini to send a Seer from deck onto the Scarm. They'll then go into a Dante, mill 3, hit nothing particularly relevant, and end their turn. Now, thankfully, they didn't get to end on a Beatrice, which is music to my ears. We're going to start by normal summoning a Fiendish Rhino Warrior, going into a Rubik, and going into a Dante. They're going to Ghost Ogre my Dante, which is really good news for me. That allows us to use Fiendish Rhino Warrior to send a Seer, and put the Rubik back in our hand with Dante's effect. This enables us to make a Beatrice in a scenario where we otherwise wouldn't have been able to. We're going to banish 2 cards for this Blackluster Soldier so we can get rid of their Dante, then pass on the battle phase because I don't really want to send either of these to the graveyard. They're going to normal summon the Tour Guide from the Underworld. We're going to banish this copy of Cherubini so the protection effect doesn't apply to the Farfa. That's going to get the Farfa straight to the graveyard because, of course, Tour Guide from the Underworld is not a Burning Abyss. They'll use the Farfa effect to banish a Beatrice, but unfortunately can't out BLS and concede. So our fifth and final match is up against Mech Knight Invoked, and oh boy, that's a travesty. Our opponent basically does everything we don't want them to, interrupts our plays, banishes our monsters, and unfortunately gets to go first. They're going to start by activating this copy of Magical Meltdown, getting an A-lister from deck, then they're going to normal summon him and use the effect of A-lister to get an invocation to hand, then special summon a Mechaba by sending an Effect Veiler. They're going to set one card, of course, Scapegoat, which is really bad news for us. We're going to have to make a Dante the hard way this game, not waste our normal summon. We'll go into it, activate its effect, and that's probably too much to pass up with a Mechaba. We'll Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit, which is a small victory, but still not particularly good. We'll normal summon this Crane to get our Ghost Ogre back, go into another Dante, mill 3, one of which is a Light of Sekka, trying desperately to get a BA monster so we can please God make Beatrice, but we find a Rescue Ferret off shuffling a Rescue Ferret. Our opponent's going to flip this copy of Scapegoat. In end step, we're going to get a Seer off of a Scarm. They will start by going into a 1, a 2, a 3, A Saruya? Well, I don't know. Then they'll activate another Magical Meltdown, get an A-lister effect as well, get an Invocation to hand, get a 300 more attack off the Saruya, and go into the largest man possible, Mangelica. They'll go ahead and attack our Dante. We're going to use Dante to get a copy of Farfa back to hand, and then we'll take 4,300. Youch! That's not ideal. So our hand's kind of mediocre. We're going to go ahead and normal summon a copy of Tour Guide, and oh my god, an Effect Veiler. Well, we're not dead, technically. We can walk into the Saruya. That does 1,800 to us. Then we can make Dante the hard way once again with a Graph and a Farfa. We'll go ahead and go into Beatrice using this copy of Seer so we can get another Dante out as a blocker. And of course, the Beatrice does get the Saruya effect. I don't know if he can actually out something with 3,100 defense without using the Mangelica attack. He goes into another A-lister. My god. I mean, it does it every turn, obviously. Then we'll use the effect of Farfa to banish the A-lister to turn off the Invocation, of course, forgetting that there is one in Graveyard. They'll go into an Elysium, which, gets rid of all of my monsters. That does trigger a whole bunch of effects, though. A Dante that was a material and a couple of BA guys. We're going to use the effect of Graph to get a copy of Libic to our side of the field, and Dante to get a Seer back to our hand. That's going to allow us to, after this Libic gets destroyed, special summon a Seer from our hand. Then after the Seer gets destroyed, special summon a Dante from grave. So things are looking grim, but not too particularly bad. They end with a Spellbook, and oh my god, they pull an Ash off of it, stopping our Scarm Search. Things aren't looking great, but we do have one more trick up our sleeve. It is an A-lister, the Meltdown Invoker. Making that card gets our Dante effect, and then, rescue Ferret to the rescue! We're going to go ahead and make Virgil. When's the last time you heard that? Then we'll send a copy of Barbar, start getting in for the Barbar beats, use Virgil's effect to tuck that copy of Saruya, then get back at Dante. We're getting in for a fair amount of damage here, 18, 25, and 1k, and there's not a lot left in our opponent's deck that outs it, but one card that does, of course, is the final Magical Meltdown. Getting another A-lister, getting another Invocation, and from this point on they can just go into whatever they want. They pick Purgatrio, that is enough. They'll go ahead and get an Alistair back to their hand, attack, give it 1,000 attack, and then attack me on the non-defense position monsters for lethal. Well, we're back with the deck, and that last game was a doozy. Despite that, I'm shocked that we held on as long as we did. BA still has the immaculate power of being able to win games that there is no way in hell you should be able to justifiably win. I was very impressed with this deck. I know Pot of Greed is a good card, shouldn't be that shocking of an end note, but Light of Sekka was everything I wanted and more for the deck. I hesitate to say this, but I am fully convinced that BA may be poised for another format of top-tier contention with or without Cherubini. So that's that. I hope you enjoyed another episode of Joseph Filletes His Favorite Decks. If you want to see me play the decks I make on this show on stream, I'm on twitch.tv/monobluetron every Tuesday and Thursday from noon to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you have an idea for a deck or archetype you want to see me play on a future episode of this show, let me know in the comment section below and I'll do my best to accommodate you. Otherwise, I'll see you Wednesday.